right, so we're actually going to have another colleague of mine from Berklee come speak now, Susan Rogers. Susan's on faculty in the MP&E department, and she also is a badass engineer and producer, and she engineered a lot of Prince's material, including Purple Rain, which is very cool. So she's going to come up and give us, I think she's got a cool Prince story for us, too, that she's going to tell. So come on up, Susan.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you for organizing this. You guys know what we're doing. We're trying to work toward a day when we don't, as a group, exist. We're trying to work toward a day when there's nothing unusual about women in music or technology. Why would you single us out? Well, we have to today, and you know why. You know it's because our numbers are lower. And as Danielle was just saying, you don't like it when you look around and you can't find someone who looks like you in your chosen field. You feel awkward. I'm going to jump around chronologically, but when I first started, when I was a kid, I was a record fanatic. I knew I wasn't meant to be a performer or a songwriter. That's not who I am. I'm not an artist. I'm a born music listener. I listen to music really well. I'm so good at that. You should watch me listen to a record. I'm like, oh. So I knew I was probably, when I discovered that there was such a thing as being a record maker, a recording engineer, I wanted to be that. But there weren't any engineers like me. When I started, there just weren't any women. I found two names. I found Leslie Ann Jones and I found Peggy McCreary. And I would just stare at those names on the back of the albums like a child stares at a cereal box, like, oh, maybe I could pick something up just by reading their names. But I wanted to be a record maker very badly. And I did get into it. I got into it by, I grew up in Southern California, and so I moved with a roommate to Hollywood, and I decided that if I was going to be a female recording engineer, because I didn't look like the type, I didn't have a free pass. Now, young, especially white males, Caucasian males, they had a pass. They could just walk right through the door. And because they looked like the archetype, they'd be given a shot. They'd be kicked out of the door if they didn't do well. But they didn't have to wait to get on the other side of the door. I did. And the other types that didn't look like white males, we needed to get in that door somehow, some way, at least in the general community. In specific sub-communities you could get in, but you'd have to go looking for those communities. So my pass into the door was certainly not musical ability, because I didn't have that, and I didn't have any college training or degree. I was a high school dropout. So my pass into the door was going to be studying, working. I'll study my way to the other side of that door. And I sent away to the U.S. Army, which at that time, because they were gullible then in 1978, they would believe a person on the phone who said, oh, I'm 16 years old, and can you send me your Army manuals for electronics? Because I want to learn electronics and join the Army. And they said, okay, and so they sent me for $1.75 in postage. They sent me all these basic electronics training, from DC principles up to microwave technology, which was a pretty good deal. I still have those books. So I studied. I bought modern recording techniques, and I studied. And I bought books on acoustics and books on magnetism and books on the theories of recording, so that I could have a pass, so that I could say, I've got this. Will you let me in? And that got me in. But that wasn't the only thing I had in my hand. I had the willingness to work, but the main thing, it turns out, that they wanted from me was, and they want from all young people, enthusiasm. I wanted it really badly. Now, it has been said that in our youth, we have no experience whatsoever, but we've got lots of enthusiasm. And as you get old, you've got no enthusiasm whatsoever, but you've got lots of experience. What's really good is if you can find and do this, young people, if you can be an old person who's still really excited about what you do, you'll go far. And if you're a young person with your enthusiasm, if as you add your knowledge and your experiences, you don't get a big head, and you stay humble, and you're really glad to be doing this, and you're grateful for every day, you'll do well. So I studied, and people saw my enthusiasm, and they saw that I was a self-starter, that I was going to go there whether they helped me or not, and when people see that, they're willing to help you. So people helped me, and they hired me as a trainee at a company called Audio Industries Corporation in Hollywood. They're not there anymore, but they taught me the ropes of how to solder and how to make cables and how to be an audio repair technician, and in short order, with their help. And I must admit, it was the help of men. It was men who saw a young woman and said, yeah, come on and join us. There was no problem there. When I showed that I've got the pass, I want in. Come on in. And they helped me, and they taught me things, and I worked really hard to be worthy of their trust and their respect. And I was, in short order, I was repairing consoles and tape machines in the greater Los Angeles area in the late 70s and early 80s. I went to work, pardon me, for a company called, well, it wasn't a company, it was a recording studio. It was called Rudy Records, and it was owned by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And I had been their fan when I was a kid, but now I was in my early 20s, and I was their studio maintenance tech, and I had to keep that studio running, which I did. But I had a dream. I had a big dream. My dream was that I could actually be working with the music that I liked. Because what I liked was soul music. What I'd always liked was soul, blues-based music. I liked Sly Stone and Al Green and James Brown. And yeah, I mean, the first time I heard Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, I was like 8 years old, and I'm like, well, whatever that is, that's the shit. Like, kids just know who they are. It just felt right. Like, yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about. It just feels right. That felt right to me. And in the first time I ever heard him, Prince was my favorite artist in the world. And my dream come true would have been to go to work for Prince. And then one day the phone rang, and it was a dear friend, former boyfriend, and he said, hey, he was from Boston. He said, hey, Sue, your dream job is waiting for you. Prince is looking for a technician. Well, then his search is over, because that's my job. I'm getting that job. And sure enough, that's what he wanted. He wanted a technician, and I was one. And at this point, I'd been in the business for 5 years. I knew my stuff, but did I know it well enough to be transplanted from Southern California all alone to Minneapolis? This artist just coming off the 1999 tour, planning his next album. He'd already had some of the recording done. Planning a movie to go with it, and soon poised to be one of the biggest artists in the world. Could I handle all of his technical needs? I just said, oh yeah, and I just got in the plane and I went. I was terrified, but I had, I had some experience under my belt, and I figured I'm at least gonna try. I'd rather fail at this than guaranteed that I'd be successful at a lesser task. I wanted it badly, so I went. And it worked out. I was with him from Purple Rain through Sign of the Times and the Black Album. I was with him for 4 years. And so now is when I will pause in our chronology, and I'll tell you a Prince story, because it does involve gender, in a manner of speaking. So I was just at Paisley Park this weekend because we had it was a big blowout, a big event on the anniversary of his passing. And it was sad, but it was also wonderful. And I got reacquainted with some of my colleagues that I hadn't seen in a long time, and my colleague Sal Greco reminded me of this story. So the year was 1984, and we're on the Purple Rain tour. Now, my job on the Purple Rain tour was to, I had tapes with me in case he wanted to record. I mean, I had a regular gig as the drum technician. The drums were all electronic, and I had put together this rig and whatever. So my position during the sets was stage left. But Prince would do a long, many hours long sound check, followed by a 3-hour performance in a stadium in front of 20,000 people. But he wasn't done for the day at 1 o'clock in the morning. He would either go to a small club and play an after party until the sun came up, or more likely we would go to a recording studio. So this guy's working all night. So to find a recording studio on tour before internet and cell phones, I had a big directory, a binder with me, and there'd be listed by state. It'd be recording studios, and I'd be there with my colleagues, in the tech room at the arena, and I'd be going, has anybody ever heard of Bob's Tape and Taco Emporium? Oh my God, how's this gonna be? So we're in Cincinnati, and I found a place called Fifth Floor Recording. Okay, called, booked it, yeah, they can take us, great. Okay, good. This is gonna be good. So, and this was several times a week this happened, so I was accustomed to this. So, anyway, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, Prince gets off stage. Purple Rain was always the last song. He goes to the hotel to shower and change clothes. Myself and our members of our crew, Sal Greco, who became the chief tech, David Tickle, who was the front of house mixer, Robbie Pasteur, who was Prince's Man Friday, all of us, we get the tapes and the anvil cases, we get a second set of instruments, all the gear, and we all go to this address on this street in Cincinnati, freezing cold at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's dark and it's cold and we're there, and we rang the buzzer, nobody answers. I'm going to need both hands for this. So at some point I'm going to set this down. So ring the buzzer, nobody answers. Oh, come on, these guys, I booked the studio. Prince is going to be here any minute. So we pull on the front door and it opens. So Robbie Pasteur goes in and he says, I'll go up to the 5th floor. I'll get the guys to come down. They'll open the elevator and we'll go in. Great. So Robbie goes in, but he doesn't come down. And we're waiting and waiting and waiting. What's possibly taking so long? We're looking up the street. Prince is going to be here any second. I got to set up the tapes. We got to set up all this stuff. Sal, go find out what happened to him. Sal goes in, and he doesn't come down. And we're waiting. We're like, oh, because the clock is running. And David's like, I'm going to go. Yeah, David, you go, and don't leave me waiting out here long. Just come back down. Even if you just see what's going on, turn around, come back down. He goes up. He doesn't come down. And finally, I'm here with all this gear on the street, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's dark, it's cold. I've got no choice. At least I take the master tapes with me anyway, the most important tapes, and I go trudging up the stairs, and I go up on the roof, and on the roof I saw our guys standing on the roof with their backs against the wall like this, and in front of them were policemen with guns like this. It turns out that when we walked into the building, they had tripped the silent alarm and it had gone right to the police station. So the police are there like this, and they're looking at me and looking at the guys, and I'm like, you guys. And Sal Greco is like, says to the cops, you see, we told you, who brings a girl to a robbery? No one brings a girl to a robbery. We've got to get into the studio. So there are times, and my point is, there are times when it helps to bring a girl to a robbery, and when it helps to have a girl in the studio. Prince liked working with women. He empowered us. And when Prince worked with us, if he's driving, and he was always driving, he wanted someone next to him that he could hand the wheel to. And when he handed you the wheel, he didn't look. When he gave you power, when he gave you responsibility, he gave it to you. He didn't care that I was 27 years old, female. He didn't care. Frankly, he liked it that I was female because he liked working with women. He didn't want to be overtly challenged. So that was all good. But whether it was Wendy, Melvoin, Lisa Coleman, any of the women who worked with him from the early days up until Third Eye Girl, or any of us, if you can do the job, you can do the job. And because he was so brilliant, he assumed that if you're good at this, right, well, then you must be good at everything, right? So he would just expect that you could do it. Of course you can do it. He can. Why can't you? I can't tell you what that did for us. Because every day we pulled off miracles. And it taught us that you don't have to be extraordinary. You just have to have someone believe in you and look you in the eye. Believe in you. And you'll believe in yourself. And you'll get her done, like we did. So good luck to you. Thank you.